Welcome to the Architecture CEO podcast, Architecture Stories, Issues, Opportunities and Learnings in the Architecture Industry in Singapore. Today I have me, Lee Siang. He is the Head of Pillar of Architecture and Sustainable Design, Singapore University Technology and Design, SUTD, which is my alma mater. And I'm so happy to have him today. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Gabriel. Nice to meet you here. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for coming down after a long day. I'm sure we were both tired, but it's okay. Thank you for coming down.
Yep.
And very quickly, for those who do not know you, could you give a little bit of introduction and say your story, where you come from, and how do you take the steps from school all the way to where you are right now?
Okay, that won't be a short story. So maybe let me just say something about my current position because that's where I think most of the listeners in the Architecture and Sustainable Design ASD family will be most familiar with. And then I will expand a bit and then you can tell me when to stop.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
So I have been the head of pillar for ASD, which stands for Architecture and Sustainable Design Pillar in SUTD since 2021. So during these 3 years in SUTD, I'm also head of another degree program called Design AI. At the same time, I also lead the Design Z, which is a design center, kind of a successor body of the old International Design Center of SUTD. So those are my current position. Maybe I just gently talk a little bit about my past.
After you graduate, what do you first do?
Yeah, okay. So immediately after I graduated, that was back in 1990, I worked for Urban Redevelopment Authority.
Okay.
That was my first job for about 3 years. Very excited because as a young graduate architect, I just feel that the school could not prepare me for everything in practice.
Still the same now.
Yes,
but
very much
hopefully
the
better
same.
now, yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's just the nature of architecture education.
yeah.
You just can't learn everything in 5 years.
Definitely.
But why URA, why not another architecture firm? Simply because I wanted to know the macro picture of where architecture exists in. So naturally, you think about urban planning, and in Singapore, none other than URA. I felt I benefited a lot. 3 years, and I really, really understood the kind of very high-level strategic thinking in how the city nation is planned, and also how economic policies, general governance of the country affects planning. And so architecture is never in isolation. It's always a response to socio-economic and environment conditions. So that was very, very beneficial. It, in a way, impacted how I practice architecture.
Then after URA, where did you go?
So I guess as a young graduate architect, I haven't sit for exam at that time. I couldn't with the 3 years experience.
Yeah.
Now, could I stay back in URA? I could have, for love of planning. But because I always desired to be a professional architect, I felt I needed to go into architecture practice proper.
Yeah.
So naturally, after 3 years, I think it was time to join an architecture firm. And I went to DP Architects.
Okay.
That started a very long career, 18 years in DP Architects. Yeah.
Okay. Any highlights of the experience?
Well, well, if you say the life of an architect, for me, it's very much defined by the 18 years. First of all, of course, is suddenly transfer from this urban planning government mode into a architecture practice private sector mode.
Yeah.
It was quite a little bit of a culture shock. But I enjoyed it because all along we were trained as architects. So it's kind of like swimming in the big ocean, now suddenly back to the comfort of your home swimming pool, right?
Yes.
And I get on to it very quickly. And I also enjoy doing the types of buildings that the firm offer me. So immediately I get a chance to design for competition, multi-use complexes, not just in Singapore, but China. And we must remember that was 1990s, right? So it was still something very new.
Yeah.
I had the chance to work on real buildings and not small building, a whole shopping mall.
Okay.
That becomes my basis for the professional practice exam preparation.
Right.
So I took a while to sit for the exam because I told myself I didn't want to rush.
There's no rush. Really.
No rush. I mean, the firm is big. There are plenty of QPs in the firm. It's not my turn to sign anything, and I don't really want to. So I spent 4 years on actually more than one, about 2 or 3 projects. Very large projects. So I never get to see from start to end of any of the project. But 4 years gave me enough exposure to different scale, size of project that I could have the full experience. Finally, I sat for my exam after 4 years. I almost forgot.
They had to remind you to go and take the exam.
Yeah, so my
advisor,
my
right?
boss, my advisor, Chan Sui Him,
Okay.
who was the CEO of the firm at that time, say, oh, you better go and sit for exam, otherwise you're going to miss out on your next promotion. So under a bit of pressure, I sat for exam. I passed first time.
Okay.
I mean, just a tip for all those sitting for exam is that, having kind of spent a long time away. I mean, I came from A level, so having spent a long time away from that kind of rigor of preparing for exam,
writing essays,
long essays, analyzing text. So I really needed time to tune back and kind of recall how I sit for exam.
Yes, by the way, 3 times 3 hour paper, right? So I still recall that 2 years ago when I was writing that, it's really a lot of, my hand is pain, my brain is fried, So it's a lot of different emotions, but I guess for both of us, it's also quite an accomplishment.
Yeah.
After taking the QP.
Yeah, but it was great because sitting for exam is different from practice. You start to read things that you would normally not read when you are running a project.
Yeah.
You start to read more carefully into the acts, statutes. You look at contract word for word, line by line, and then you start to say, hey, actually, I didn't know that we had to do that.
Which is the same for all of us. Because usually we are not limited to either maybe a contract type, maybe even the typology is different. So I also wouldn't expect anybody who's fresh into the PPE exam, right, to be able to understand, I different typologies, different requirements.
That's right.
I wouldn't expect them to be an expert at every single typology.
Yeah.
So it really depends on the exam. Some years are quite good, some years are quite bad, actually.
Yeah. But having the right motivation was very important because at that time, there are a few things on my mind. One is, of course, I have a young family. I think by 1993, 94, I had 2 daughters. One just newborn, the other one is 3 years old. So being a sole breadwinner of the family, you want to get promoted. I mean, to be very practical about it, you want to increase your income, right?
Actually, it's true for me as well.
So the way to do it is to get promoted. So
to get recognized professionally. Right?
To get recognized professionally. That's one very important motivation.
Yeah.
The second important motivation is that I still like to be a designer. I want to control the outcome of my design. Then I realized that actually all these contractual requirements, codes and regulations are essential because if you don't understand them, your design is basically at the control of others. There's no way for you to assert your influence and say, hey, this drawing cannot be done this way because if you do this way, by the time you go to construction, it will be completely different from my design intent. So I found motivation in sitting for exam because of those 2 reasons.
It is very important because some of us get stuck as a design architect, but then there's this role called design architect, but actually they're not a QP yet, right?
Yeah.
But then they also fail to see all the different compliance requirements and contract documents, and even like the scope of service for an architect. So there's a lot of different things that I once myself didn't know about and only got to know when I did the PPE exam and study for how many months? 2 months? I think 2 months of hardcore like sorting out my notes, putting it in the right place. Thankfully my year was open book. I'm not sure because it's not open book.
It was open book.
Oh, thank goodness.
Hardly have time to open
but
the
we had
book.
a laptop. But I was on the laptop, so still,
I didn't have that.
I was an open laptop. So it's a bit different, but still the concept is still the same. You still have to learn and understand where to find what.
That's right.
Yeah, that's the crucial key skill to learn.
Yeah. So of course, once you pass the exam, it's funny. You suddenly feel that you have the right to assert your knowledge and experience, even against someone more senior, whether it's your supervisor internally or even with a client. No doubt I'm not the QP signing the drawing, but if a client or the QS come and tell me, hey, this cannot be done, I want this to be done this way, you feel that you have the right and the kind of moral high ground to tell your client, no, I think this can be done in a different way.
I guess it's also, if it helps the project and it's also compliant, I guess you should sound out.
Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes maybe different QPs have different, interpretation of the code.
Yeah.
That also could be very jeopardizing if you don't discuss this in person with the QP as well. Yeah, and also maybe for myself, I also realized that the client also treats me differently after I become a QP.
Really?
So
Okay.
I was like, okay. Like, at least they know that I took the exam. I actually spent time to understand the code.
Yeah.
I try my best to, serve and like to give a good service.
Yes.
And to give professional advice. So that is also a good reason why to take QP.
Yeah. I'm glad it's the same. We all share the same feeling.
So for those who are considering QP, please take QP. looking at the cameras because they are all there.
I think it's more than just relevant to architecture practice, because I think in society there's all this rite of passage where, especially for profession, where there is a kind of clear passage and a clear gateway before you are fully recognized as a full-fledged professional. I think it's the same with engineers, with accountants. So to me, I think that was a very, very good experience. And I find that experience also helped me in my personal life. Because when you walk out to a store, you buy something or you contract something to do for your apartment and things like that, you start to look at things differently. You feel that you have that professional stature. You know what to watch out for.
Yes.
So I think it has a good personal impact as well.
Maybe, so after you get QP, what was the next inkling that you had to itch, to scratch? And then where do you go? You can share with all of us today.
Well, my practice started in DP in 1992, roughly then. I think I spent 18 years there. I can roughly break it into maybe kind of roughly a 7-year period, each of them. No, but the first stage is really from 1992 to 1997. Yeah, 5 years. So the first 5 years was most crucial because that 5 years I finished my professional
It's
exam.
the foundation of everything, right?
Yeah, and I got promoted to, I think, a junior associate level.
Okay.
My boss trusted me. So I have a team to run at the end of 5 years. And at that time, I do something quite crazy.
What did you do?
I felt the need to help society. Yeah, so I actually went to a kind of professional counseling position.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, working with a church actually at the time.
Okay. So you took a step out from Aki for a while.
I wanted to take a step out.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to take a year out after 5 years.
Okay.
I wasn't because I burned out or because I got tired. I just wanted, for some reason, to try something different.
Okay.
I think most people will probably feel the same. So I spent 1 year that way. But my boss was very good. So he said, you don't just leave the profession like
Oh,
that.
it's a sabbatical kind of.
Yeah, so he kept me on kind of like a partial contract, keep me in the firm.
Okay.
And I had the opportunity to actually experience dealing with very life difficult decisions. So that enriched my whole life because for 1 year I deal with difficult cases or young people who actually have very stressful condition to overcome. At times they have suicidal thoughts, right? So I spend time counseling them. I sit between arguing husband and wife, trying to make peace with them. I try to help family with older folks who really felt abandoned. And I think that 1 year was strangely very helpful for my architecture.
How so?
Because you suddenly remember that whatever you
people
do
who matter also, yeah.
is for people, right? And we pride ourselves as architects, we design for people, but we actually don't. We
To some
kind
extent,
of
yeah.
we kind of do it as a paper exercise,
kind
right?
of,
We
yeah.
don't kind of put ourselves in their shoes and say, hey, in this room, is this the best way to sit? Is this the best way to lay out the room? Who is going to sit here? How do they feel? We don't go to that extent most time.
Because most of the time we are trying to catch the time to do something,
That's right.
like a milestone to meet,
Yeah.
deliverables,
Yeah.
present something. But then we don't really focus on the personal level. Like
Yeah.
sometimes also the stakeholders are not the person using the space.
Yeah.
For example,
Yeah.
when I'm doing HDB projects, right? So
Yeah.
I'm helping HDB design the houses, but I don't interact with residents who are going to come in.
Yeah.
So how would I know the residents will actually enjoy the spaces that we have
Yeah.
designed for?
Yeah. But I think the greatest benefit is this, Gabriel. When I saw people's problems, I didn't even solve them sometimes, right? But I see what they go through. Then after 1 year, I came back, I look at contractual problems. I look at stressful deadlines. They're nothing compared to the person who sad to say feel that their life could end tomorrow. Yeah, that's life and death.
So it was the impact that you're looking for.
I didn't look. I didn't go out to look for anything.
What really drove you to take the year off? Was it looking for impact or something, or some meaning in what you're
Impact,
doing?
meaning,
Yeah.
because I was questioning if I should be architect for the rest of my life.
Okay, actually, we all do that. Yeah. Okay.
We all do that, right? So I'm being real, all right? I mean, my career was actually on the way out.
Okay.
I was en route from a junior associate to a senior associate in 1997.
Like it was all planned out for you actually.
It's all planned out for me, and I was told very specifically, don't go because this is your immediate promotion, no?
Yeah.
And I told you that I have a young family. By then, I have 3 daughters, right?
Oh,
So I must thank my wife, who was very supportive. She said, do what you feel the conviction to do.
Wow.
We are behind you. But I think after 1 year, having considered 3 young children's education needs,
Okay, practical lah.
again, being practical, right? Having a house mortgage to pay for.
Okay.
No.
So you went back to?
Went back to practice.
Oh, back to DP. Oh,
Yeah,
different-
back to DP.
Oh, okay.
Back to DP. And I happen to have such a wonderful employer who kept the position for me. And not only kept the position for me, but knowing my potential, made me a commitment into a potential partnership position
Okay.
in a few years' time. So I that's why I always tell all the graduates here, please choose the right employer from day one, preferably, so that your career is kind of looked after.
It's good to have a very good mentor as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Not only the firm, but within the firm, there's many different people.
Yes.
The most important is definitely the mentor
Yes.
who will guide you along the way.
So I had that angel mentor, so to speak,
Yeah.
who basically looked after my career until I finished it in 18 years over there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So fast forward, what's next? What was after that?
Well, I must tell you the second half of my time in DP.
yeah,
So
before
after I came back, I soon became a partner, a junior partner.
Okay.
And by then, I would say one of the things I miss most is design. As a partner, you really cannot spend time on design.
More of
anymore.
business decisions.
Business decision, pitching for new projects, managing very difficult contracts. The contracts get bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
We're no longer talking about single building. Each time
Very
talking
different.
about big contracts of 5-6 buildings at one go. So I miss design.
Okay.
That is tough. But I must say that the firm was doing well. It was growing in influence. I was also, in my second half of my career, 18 years with DP, I was fast forward into overseas market, which again was totally amazing experience. Because when you try to pitch for a project in Singapore, you go through the tender, the competition is very standardized. You learn things in one way. But the moment you have to go and fight for projects in China, in India, Southeast Asia, everyone is different. So you almost feel like you have to learn a new skill all over again.
Actually, wherever you go, something new to learn.
Absolutely. And when designing for a different culture, different context, that again enriches your experience.
Right.
So I really enjoyed my time. But it was getting very, very tough because you're dealing not just with overseas projects, Singapore projects, and you have to spend time flying between the countries. It was tough for the family.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was, I guess family and was one of the factors that you consider to change your career?
Basically, at the end of 18 years, I was full partner. There were 10 of us,
Okay.
and I would say I certainly have a longer runway to spend with the company. But one of the last stop, I had a very interesting experience in Thailand, where my wife and I happened to visit. Now, I must inject a little bit of missing information there. Before I left DP in 2010, 2007 and 8, I was the Singapore Institute of Architects president.
Okay.
That was also at the prompting of my mentor,
Right.
who said, now that you have succeeded in the firm, you have to give back to society.
Okay.
So I was trusted into the institute. I became president those 2 years, and in those 2 years, I visited, of course, our ASEAN neighbors, and one of the stop was in Thailand. And I had the pleasure of visiting a very beautiful home for the less fortunate. These are usually children who have either become homeless or extremely poor family. I think it was at the patronage of the princess at that time.
Okay.
So they actually trained them to be artists, to be good chef, and so we were in a place that were treated to again almost home cooked Thai food, and they put up very simple down to earth performances. They train them, and so that they have a skills and they have a place, a roof over their head. I really liked the experience, and I kind of rekindled what I experienced in 1997. So again, after discussing with my wife, we felt that we have given a large part of our best part of life to DP, and we could now perhaps use the small fortune that we have gathered to give back to society.
Okay.
So I left.
Okay.
This time with no agenda. Wanted to go and invest the money in arts, creative arts, to kind of recreate the same thing that we saw.
Yeah.
There were challenges because Singapore is not like Thailand. The cost of doing such a thing is like 3, 4, 5,
It's much
maybe
higher.
10 times more than Thailand.
Yeah.
And we are obviously living in a much more affluent society. So you don't always have the same kind of challenging situations for very young children. So I tried different kind of art form to experiment how to invest, how to bring these underprivileged people into condition that we can help. Now, in the midst of all that took nearly 1 year, 1.5 years. In the midst of all this, I bumped into a friend. His name is Ong Zubun, who is the chairman of Ong and Ong Group. So at that time, we met in New York City. That was after my long trip of trying to look at commissioning a movie in LA, and I flew over to New York City. We caught up for breakfast, and he said, hey, I'm trying to reorganize my firm. Ong and Ong at that time was a pure architecture firm of about 300, 400 people, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
Doing quite well. So he said, hey, I have a vision of trying to turn this pure architecture practice into a multidisciplinary firm that can offer all full range of services.
Okay.
Anything to do with built environment, graphics, and design. So I said, hey, that sounds very interesting. That's also something I believed in, because architects have been operating in silos. So how can we actually bring this into what we call a 360 service?
Okay.
So I was convinced. But this time round, I made it quite clear to him. I said, let's set a timeline. 6 years. That's all I will spend to see how far this experiment would take us. So that was my kind of like a second major milestone.
It's like the 777 counting now. Okay.
Yeah. So that was in the year of 2011.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
2011, I was still in JC. Okay, continue.
So 6 years of experiment, which was very exciting, because what happened is that together with him, we grew the firm from 300-400 to 900 over people, almost the size of TP Architects, with very big regional offices in the making, in Malaysia particularly, in Vietnam. And also, I went back to my familiar hunting ground in China, set up the Shanghai office. So I find that at that stage, I'm more entrepreneurial, more pioneering, whereas in DP, I am like a
Still like an employee mindset kind of thing.
I wouldn't say employee, but it's I would say more
More passive.
not passive. Actually, DP is actually very entrepreneurial, but in a way, it is very much grounded on architecture practice,
Okay.
less of business. Whereas in Ong and Ong is very much an enterprise development.
Okay.
Because it doesn't have the same foundation as DP, but it just have a lot of passion. So we grew, and we did manage to assemble almost a full suite of services. Anything that you name in the building environment, we have it.
Okay. Yeah.
So at the end of 2015 or 2015 thereabout, we were 900 strong. And it was actually considered top 3 in Singapore.
Yeah.
At that time, I think financially it was a crisis time. 2015 thereabout. I don't know where were you at the time. You just graduating or
I
starting?
think still in school. Yeah.
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 So the firm was actually affected. I mean, basically all the architects firm got affected. But in their case, I realized the challenge was even greater because unlike a pure architect firm that has got a 50-year history, like DP, Ong and Ong, other than the architect component that has got like 30-40 years history, the rest are brand new. The rest are actually less than 5 years old.
Right.
So they are not quite able to withstand the impact of an economic crisis. So that part get affected. And it's hard to keep people. The moment when you find that you cannot make ends meet, right? So this is where a lesson learned in running business is that you probably can't rush to grow. And it is important to grow the foundation step by step. Rapid growth is great. Today we celebrate that, right? We see tech firms that grow from small to become super large. But all it takes is a COVID, whole thing tumble down.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's a lesson learned whenever we grow a business is that we can't rush. Foundation is important, and a key part of the foundation is talent. Without talent, firms like architecture firm, design firm cannot stand the test of economic crisis.
The key challenge now is to retain the talent.
Retain the talent. That is paramount.
Yeah.
But if your firm is run based on bottom line and talent is treated as secondary, then that will be a problem. But again, how do you retain talent, right? Retaining talent is not just about pay them more.
Oh, definitely not.
It's
more
about
than that.
upskilling.
Yeah. Upskilling, correct.
Upskilling. So you want a young architect not just to be able to do drawings. You want a young architect to be able to understand the dynamics of projects, to be able to have meaningful conversations with the client, motivate the contractors. So all these things takes time, and it's very important. And now, of course, today we talk about digitalization, talk about computational skill, AI skill.
Yeah, we can talk about it about ASD. Yeah.
Yep.
What is ASD do? Maybe you finish up your story first. You can jump into ASD.
All right. So
Yeah.
I won't take too long to finish us. Like I said, my story is very long.
Yeah.
So very quickly, at the end of 6 years contract when it's up, I
Yeah.
left also for another reason because I was at that time very active in the arena of Green Building Council.
Okay.
So World Green Building Council is a global NGO that has 70 over country members. And I was actually the vice chair.
Okay.
So naturally, when it comes to 2016 election time, I was naturally become the chair. Spent 2 years there. Again, another learning curve. I can tell more if you are interested.
Next time.
Next time.
Yeah.
But at the end of that 2 years, I was kind of settled in Singapore, and I got a strange, unusual invitation from Building and Construction Authority
BCA.
to invite me to join them as an executive director of what they call Build SG, which actually is a unit that looks at industry transformation.
Okay.
Spent 3 years there. I love it, every moment of it, because again, it's new learning curve, but this time engaging the whole built environment industry. But if you remember 2020, we had the COVID.
Yeah.
So all the transformation was kind of put on hold, and a rescue operation started to help firms to survive. By about 2021, again, I got an unusual invitation from SUTD to join them as a head of pillar for ASD.
Okay.
Yeah. So I all things considered, and I share with my BCA leadership. I say, look, I've been an architect, I've been a NGO, I've been a government experience. I think it's very timely for me to give back to education. And again, with their blessing, I came over.
And now you're here.
Yes, now I'm here.
Yeah, so within SUTD, you also had different roles. Maybe just very briefly share about what your involvement is.
Okay, so my number one role is, of course, being the head of pillar of ASD.
Yeah.
As you know, the ASD head of pillar has a responsibility to make sure that the pillar's education deliver what it promises, continue to try to attract young talent into this course,
Okay.
engage industry so that we are relevant to industry. So those are kind of the key areas that the head of pillar has to handle, other than taking care of the staff and faculty members.
Okay.
At the same time, I was immediately drafted into the setting up of Design Z. So Design Z is basically important machinery to help SUTD grow its design, because it basically sets direction for design. It aided the faculty to do design research. It engages the design entities outside SUTD, which is also very much up my alley, my familiarity areas, because in Ong and Ong, I shaped the kind of 360 design portfolio. So I understand what this involves. And naturally, when we look at design, the new degree program called Design AI fits under it. So I also took over the kind of program director role over that. So those are the three areas that I look after.
Okay. So at ASD, let's focus on ASD. Because this is where I used to be.
Yes.
Yeah. What were the challenges that you faced at the very start? Like, when you came in to become the head of pillar, was there anything that you wanted to change straight away that you saw?
Well, what I did not mention is this. I was actually on the board of trustee of SUTD
So
since
you're
2009.
observing from the
I was
background.
observing outside.
Okay.
But it's quite different when you're on the board and looking in
Definitely.
versus when you're in there, right?
right,
So from the outside, everything looks fantastic. When I'm in here, I would say it didn't detract from the original intent of ASD, which is actually to make sure that we are technologically more advanced in preparing the students. So, which is why how hard we drive the agenda on computational design, digital aspects of building and construction. I think it lived up to its name, so much so that before I joined ASC as a head of pillar before COVID, I have industry players who come and make a mild complaint to me and say, hey, your graduate seems to be digitally very advanced. But when I want them to draw something that I want to show my client, they don't seem to be as ready. So at that time, I could not defend very much because I was outside, right?
Yeah,
so
outside.
I said, okay, I'll feed back to ASD. But I never did because I kind of know where that comes from. That industry just want graduates who can immediately draw what they need at that time. Our students are prepared way ahead of the curve. They are doing things that the industry are not doing. Interestingly, COVID seems to change that completely. So you know that during COVID, all the architecture firms are forced to transform digitally, right? What they don't used to do digitally, they have to now.
Yeah, we always use screen share, Microsoft Teams.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
actually annotate on the drawing on the laptop.
Yeah.
It's no longer like I can draw for you. I have to use my tablet and draw for you.
Exactly.
So it's kind of a different mode of working, but it
Yeah.
works. Yeah, it works.
Yeah, and that's at the operational level. At the design level, things have also changed,
Yeah.
right? Things that used to be considered boring, repetitive, now suddenly there are new ways of creating more efficient design, more productive design, but yet are creative looking. That's where the power of computational design comes in.
Yep.
That respond to another very important factor, which is the issue of climate change, global warming, where people are now more interested in building the response to the climate positively.
Yeah.
And all these things needs kind of a digital tech as tools.
So you need more and more data to inform our design.
That's right.
Sometimes we just say things that are like assumptions or
Exactly.
very very airy-fairy. But
Yeah.
nowadays, especially clients nowadays are actually more interested in knowing about the data.
That's right.
And the data nowadays is quite easy to get. There's a lot of different sensors or whatever. You can take
Yeah.
many different forms of data and you can infer from that.
Yeah.
But the complexity comes in when so many forms of data,
Yeah.
so many goals and objectives.
Yeah.
So as an architect, is how do we direct this project and make sure that the goals are set and are met.
Yes. So you need actually like a orchestra conductor who understand how each of these different instruments are played.
Yeah.
So the same thing with here dealing with IT technology, right? It's not just about knowing how to run one tool, but knowing many tools that can operate in this complex environment and extract out the right result from each tool and bring them in harmony together.
Right.
So I think that's in a way how ASD shape its graduates through the different program. So I will tell you that after COVID, all of a sudden I have now that I am the head of pillar for ASD, I get requests all the time. Hey, do you have more graduates? Do you have more graduates? I need them for my digital
Oh,
transformation.
speaking of number of graduates.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've heard misconceptions I'm not sure, is the number of students entering ASD dwindling? If yes, why? How
Well,
can we improve it?
Yeah, this is a difficult one. It's a global phenomenon. Yeah, so the number does reduce, and this is not just unique to SUTD, not unique to NUS. In fact, unique to most of Asia world, maybe exception of some of the European markets.
The more famous one.
I wouldn't say more famous. It's more cultural.
Culture? Okay.
I mean, just aside this diversion here, right?
Yep.
Italy, for example, very, very happy with architecture graduates because they see architecture as a holistic education that prepares them for life.
Okay.
So they will have architecture graduates become TV personality, become media personnel, even some movie stars. They're happy with that because they see this as a best combination of science and arts together and produce a holistic talent.
So most of the graduates in Italy, they do stay on to become architects.
Not all, in fact.
For a longer time.
In fact, I think they overproduce.
Oh, okay.
But they overproduce in a meaningful way that those who don't become architects just take
They're
up
free to do whatever. Yeah.
important roles other than
in
that.
society. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but in Asia, it's different. We are very much based on exact demand and supply. So, my time was economic boom time, 1990s.
Yeah.
Urbanization, cities from single-digit million become double-digit million. So the demand for architects was very great. I would tell you that anybody who runs an architecture firm in the 1990s to 2000s basically made a lot of money.
Yeah.
But post 2000, when you see cities mature and
Was that
saturated,
due to the removal of the blue book, the fee scale?
no.
Was independent.
That actually is inconsequential.
Is it? Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it was simply an issue of supply and demand. When in 1990s, when I started practice, right, the fees were actually already not the highest compared with the blue book. But because there's so much urbanization, every firm is busy. Every firm could easily clock in very high profit margin. Yeah, even though they do complain overwork.
Yeah.
Fast forward today, where you have real estate market basically all saturated. Yeah, with more stringent property control. I'm not talking about Singapore only. Throughout Asia, China is in a worse shape. You see architecture firms' job dry up or become too competitive. The high number of architects from the 90s, 2000 now are fighting for a smaller pie. Yeah. So that is a problem. Now, when that happens, what you see is what you hear today about very low fees. Some firms can't even afford to pay the architects properly. And you have architects overworking Saturday, Sunday, non-stop for consecutive months. So those horror stories start to come out.
After the 2000s.
After 2000s.
Okay.
Yeah. So by the time you join,
I experienced it.
you experienced it already,
last time,
right? So I think partly architects themselves are to be blamed because they don't see that coming. They don't see that markets will saturate. They didn't reinvent themselves. They didn't think about new ways of doing architecture to maintain the cutting edge. So if you want to do the same thing you do 10 years ago and try to fight for a piece of pie, basically you're going to end up in a very, very miserable practice condition. So that unfortunately has an impact on students' interests.
Admissions,
your young JC students,
they're more informed also, I think.
They're more
aware,
informed. They look at, but funny thing is that it affects lawyers, it affects accountants.
Yeah, not only just architects.
It affects basically all the professionals.
Correct.
Yeah. So, and then plus you have over celebration of entrepreneurship, people from rags to riches, from nothing to billionaire. I think that sort of story doesn't help. So yes, so the answer is yes, it affected the student intake number. My stand is this. Maybe it's not a bad thing in the sense that there's a bit of consolidation. So you take in people who are really interested about architecture. But what happens when they come in? We need to basically train them to be different from the kind of current mundane, boring practice. We need to give them special edge. So for example, now we are very much into AI period. So we didn't start only today. We started last year and the year before in a small experiment. Where we start to teach Core 1, 2, 3 using AI.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's the only way to go. And in some ways, there's still young people who are very interested to impact the built environment, but they don't want to do things in the old way. So that's the only way we can kind of reach out to young minds to attract them to ASD.
What's the hope? Let's say with this new generation of young fresh graduates using the new education methodology, like using AI, using all these technologies, what is your hope and what is ASD's hope for these fresh grads? Let's say when they come out to industry, what is the thing that you want them to learn and to be able to do straight away? Okay, so the future paradigm cannot be ASD doing this alone. The only way we can succeed is we need to pull together we have to pull together the best of the industry players and jointly address this issue together. Okay.
So we need to put together the top firms, the most progressive firms, the most cutting edge firms into constant dialogue with us and also hopefully with the students.
Okay.
To say that, okay, this is not a problem that belongs to ASD. Neither is this a problem belongs to firms. This is a joint problem.
Okay.
And we need to come together and brainstorm a way out. So we're under siege. Yeah. Firms are under problem of low fees, too much competition, and we are under a problem of not getting enough young talent in. So we need to now come together and say, hey, how can we present architecture in new light? So my proposal is for the best firms come in here, work with us on Core 1, 2, 3, Option Studio 1 and 2, in which we already put in practice option 1 and 2. We have firms basically running it.
Mm.
And they are using that opportunity to also test bed new ideas that they would not otherwise do when they're serving their clients.
Mm.
They have no chance,
Yeah.
right? But in the studio condition, they have a chance to start testing, okay, does this idea work? Maybe I can use it for the next project.
Mm.
And in the interaction with the young people, who then start to see, hey, actually practice is not
That
all
far away,
about,
yeah.
bolts and nuts and nothing else.
Mm.
I can work with this employer. I can trust that we co-create things.
Mm.
And we need to let this manifest its fruits by starting to see that some firms are starting to succeed because of the kind of DNA that SUTD bring to the table.
So they kind of like inviting them to invest their time and to come into the studio to interact with students,
Yes.
potentially headhunting them, I don't know, and also to see
Yep.
the potential that ASD brings to the table.
Yep.
In that sense, it kind of works because there's this sort of synergy between the industry and the school.
Yes.
And that's very important, especially when it comes to do with fresh grads.
Yes.
We have to like somehow match the correct employer to the fresh grad.
Yes.
Somehow lah. We don't assign lah, but
That's right.
we give opportunity for organic interactions.
Yes.
And also, how do I say, maybe once the firms understand what ASD is all about, then they can fine tune their operations and make it suitable for them to come in on board.
Correct.
And potentially bring in the value that the company.
Correct. So this correction process
takes time.
cannot be fast.
Yeah.
Right? I'm here now in my 3rd year. And I just managed to now practically get big firms, progressive firms to run our option studio 1 and 2.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay.
That means our faculty is actually playing a second fiddle. Call 1, 2, 3, not yet.
Okay.
But in time to come, will be, starting with call 3, housing.
Yeah.
So once you have that relationship built up, you start to form a very strong nucleus of ideation. And the same people will take it past graduation into the firm
Yeah.
and then start to be well known for the product they create. That is not your run-of-the-mill market product,
Yeah.
but it's the result of research, talent, and entrepreneurship. Until then, we have that clarity of outcome and direction. Then I think we are in a much better position to attract the right talent.
I see.
Today, we are working against the tide, so to speak, to try to persuade young people to join us. Against the tide because we cannot show them the exact product we're trying to create.
Only after you go through, then you can fully understand.
That's right.
But
That's
the enticing part, the attracting part, also takes a lot of hard work. And also a lot of messaging to be correct as well as timely as well.
That's right. So we can't really rush, but we must have a clear roadmap ahead of us. And I think this is in a way to answer to the Singapore Institute of Architects challenge, right? Talking about the profession is facing a crisis, nobody wants to join, people are leaving the profession, but you can't solve that problem by demanding higher payment, higher fee, because money doesn't solve everything. It's what you do with the money. Yeah. So I think this is something that it's a very, very exciting discussion.
Yeah, can go on forever. So maybe we can shift gears a little bit, right? So so we've tackled the part of the attracting the students and students in the studio and students graduating. So after graduation, how do you, because I know I met you through ASD alumni. So let's say alumni, it's quite a new thing actually. I think you were the one who actually initiated, asked a few of us to band together and start to create events and stuff like that.
We met at the cafe,
so we met at the cafe and we actually organized a few events.
Yeah.
So it's an ongoing collaboration, but I think that is the second piece of the puzzle because alumni have to give back to the school because after being in the industry for 5 years, and then we have learned so many things and we can actually share. So I also understand that ASD is supporting alumni in many different initiatives. So one of them is, for example, we're going to have gatherings every year to actually interact, to share, especially with the new alumni who have just graduated, and also like having them in the same room as those who are already in the industry for a longer time. So what this year I'm trying to do is also to have these conversations and dialogues. That's one thing. The other thing is we are also maybe finding a way to have this podcast like this. Because I think one thing is a group discussion. The other one is more like a one-to-one or one-to-three guests, a more focused discussion. So that will be also helpful for the fresh grads.
Yeah.
So I guess this is still work in progress, but I hope
Yep.
whatever we are doing kind of guides them and not spoon feed, but also we do need to take care of the fresh grads.
Yes.
Yeah, because I know I can feel the pain already. Like not enough interns, not enough, subordinates to help me. So that is a challenge for all of us.
Yeah. I'm very, very passionate about this piece. So while busying with the ASD curriculum, trying to modify it, change it, immediately actually from day one, I work with the team and say, hey, do we have an active alumni program? They say, not at the pillar level, it's at the university level. You get together once a year, maybe twice a year for makan, right?
Yeah.
For fun. I said that's not my definition of alumni
I'm
engagement.
actually not in the alumni association for the whole school. I never was interested, but I think when Cheng Wei was the one who approached me, asking me about the ASD alumni, I was like, oh, do we have one? Creating a new one. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That also got me intrigued.
Yeah.
And also got me back to school in some way. Yeah.
So for me, it's part of the strategy of making sure that what SUTD produce continue to last the test of time.
Yeah.
So I said, no, we don't have many batches, 7, 8 batches, the most. It's easy, not astronomical number. So let's reach everyone if possible.
Yeah.
For what? I think fun, certainly we should have. We should not deny everybody of the social fun. But more strategically, I'm interested to see how we can help our alumni and help ourselves. Help ourselves is very easy. Basically, we're telling alumni, come back and
Share
interact
knowledge,
with the current students, and then through the interaction, they will benefit from an experience. On the other hand, it allows you an opportunity to find suitable candidates, maybe for your firms, and maybe working with you.
Yeah.
That is a transactional level, very easy.
Yeah.
But at the strategic level, I think it's important for us to see how we continue to create that SUTD family, that we can advance the mission of SUTD. Because we said SUTD wants to be create a better world by design. But frankly, at the student level, we can't create a better world. The real people who create better worlds are the graduates.
Yeah.
So if we want to live up to that tagline, then we need to actually help our graduates impact the world that they work in. How to impact? One is back to my favorite topic, is about upskilling. I don't know about you. I know that being a qualified architect, you have to sit for CPD program.
Oh, yes.
But CPD is light touch. It's not immersive. It's not in-depth skills training or even knowledge impartation.
Yeah.
In the field of AI, in the field of computational design, all you need is 1 year gap. You are probably already behind time, right? So if SUTD has the most current knowledge, or at least we're in touch with the current knowledge, compared to graduates who have to work very late in a firm with no rest, no free time, I think we're in a better position to bring that knowledge to graduates. So why don't we create meaningful CET program that advantage the graduates, so that you can have additional knowledge and skill set that help you in your work, and through that, in a way, position you in a favorable position in your firm.
So this is under skills future.
Could be under skills future. Actually, I don't think so much about skills future. I think more about what you need to do your work in a excellent manner.
Yeah.
Say you have to design a condo, right? In your current way would be you spend weeks to look at all the feasibility, code compliance before you arrive at the design.
Yeah.
Today, we are doing AI here that with the right training on the model, machine learning, we can generate these things in split second. Why don't we pass these skills to to you guys
Yeah.
so that you can use it in your firm. And I think this has got tremendous impact on practice. Because if you can do these things faster, better, it will cut down waste, cut down abortive work, make the firm more efficient. Then perhaps the earning of the firm will be better, right? So there are downstream implications. But we're not going to teach everyone, so we should actually help our graduates first.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I do believe in organizing conversations and knowledge sharing. Not all firms are equal. Some firms have better practice than the other. Why don't we share them, right? So the alumni network hopes to achieve that as well.
Yeah, so I actually intend to do a podcast with them.
Yeah.
The topic is about sustainable work practices. So like things like how do we practice in a small firm versus a large firm? Is there anything you can learn from each other in terms of how do we set boundaries? Some people have 2 phones like I do, I have 2 phones.
Yeah.
So no one can contact me at night. Yeah, that kind of thing. How do you say no to extra work?
Yeah.
So I think this is the first step we are trying to do for our podcast in May.
Yeah.
That'd be a good thing to look out for.
Yes.
So maybe just so we talked about a lot of things.
Yeah.
I think it's very interesting, but we have to kind of like narrow down to the end.
Sure.
So was there any messages you want to share? Firstly to students, your current students.
I think it's the same message whether I say to alumni or say to current students. One of the most amazing quote I will share with all of you is when I was still in DP at that time.
Yeah.
A very famous architect, I'm not sure whether you heard of him, Fumiko Maki,
Okay.
who actually came to give a talk. He was probably already in his 80s, and he was working on Republic Poly at that time.
Right.
So it's a rare occasion he come and give a talk exclusively just for the firm. And I can't remember whether I was the one who asked him the question or someone asked him the question, do you have an advice for young aspiring architect? So he gave a very interesting answer. He said, architecture career is a very long journey. Even the practice of architecture is a very long journey. And he said, if you have a chance to watch a sports event, try to watch marathon. He said, when you watch a marathon, it's at least a 2-hour plus thing. He said, observe the facial expression of the runner, observe the kind of competition, the move, the kind of stress they go through during the whole run. He said the best marathon runner not only, of course, are physically fit, well-conditioned, but observe their alertness on their facial expression. It is never ending of strategizing, thinking, looking at the next step, watching competition, and while keeping the focus on the path ahead. I said that for 2 hours you have to do that. He said that's the way an architect has to work.
Yeah, it's a very long journey.
It is a long journey, but constantly strategizing, constantly looking at the way ahead. How do you navigate? How do you move forward and not trip, not fall behind? Know how to maintain the right pace. Doesn't always be number one, but know that you're not far off. So I thought it was a very good advice.
Yeah, because architecture is lifelong learning. You always learn about something. Even if you're a QP, even if you're an architect, but you will also learn from anybody actually.
Yeah.
Even at the site, you also learn from the worker sometimes.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting. And yeah, I think the best architects are also humble also.
Yeah.
And also eager to learn,
Yeah.
no matter how old they are.
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe just have three different statements I want to ask.
Okay.
So like it's kind of like for example, architecture in Singapore should be what? Yeah, so I have 3 of these questions. Yeah, so the first question is actually architecture in Singapore should be more what? And maybe just very short why.
For me is architecture should be part of a sustainable city.
So it should be more sustainable.
Let me
What-
explain a
what
little
should it
bit.
be more?
Basically,
Yeah.
I said it's part of a sustainable city, meaning to say architecture needs to be put in its proper place within the city
Okay.
that is sustainable. So, in other words, what I'm saying is that I don't believe in an unsustainable city with green buildings, right? Because that is, to me, a wrong starting point. The right starting point is that the city itself must be sustainable. And then you put architecture within that framework, then it will be excellent.
Okay. So SUTD students in Singapore, ASD, should be less of what? What should it be less?
I think ASD student
It should be less.
should be less grade conscious, should be more mission focused. So in other words, what I'm saying is that don't be too worried about even what grades you're going to get in studio design, because design is something that it will involve risk taking. It will involve experiment with things that you are not familiar with. And don't always try to do a design based on what you think a A grade means. Take bold experiment.
What is Lee Siang's secret skill? Something that we don't know that you are very good at. Could be a hobby or could be something very funny. I don't know.
I think my secret skill, I will go back to that very famous, inspiring story about the marathon runner. I'm not a marathon runner, but I run almost every day if I can. And I think I'm a person who, if I can, I will probably sleep and still think about things and kind of strategizing my way forward.
Oh, okay. That's very. So how often do you run?
I do it. I used to do it practically every day.
Okay.
But nowadays, because of schedule and busy program, so I sometimes once every other day. Yeah.
All right. With that, we have to run back to home. So yeah, thank you so much, Lisa, for such a wonderful conversation.
Thanks, Gabriel. Yeah.
Yeah. Have a good night.
Yeah. Good night.